Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Uh, episode episode 321. I am your host, Michael. Joining me, as usual, Gail from Communities Digital News, Daniel from the Inscriber. What's going on, lady and gent?
Evening.
Glad to see everybody here. Don't forget to join our live chat and have your say.
Indeed, absolutely. I want to start things before we get things going. I want to start things on kind of a sad and then happy note, all occurring on April 9th. On the last episode, on the episode last week, kind of ended things talking, sending our prayers and best wishes to one DMX. Things didn't turn out so well as on news broke Friday, April 9th, that DMX passed away at the age of 50. For those who do not know or been sleeping under a rock, DMX was admitted to a hospital due to a drug overdose. Unfortunately, he didn't overcome the injuries. The ills suffered from that drug overdose, and he unfortunately passed away. We want to take some time to talk about the life and the career of DMX. His influence on the let me say this. There are few within the within hip hop history who had more passion, who brought it harder on the mic than Earl Simmons, aka DMX. He was a guy who showed that you can show your emotions and yet keep it real and be hard at the same time. He was his authentic self through and through from beginning to end. Yes, he had troubles. It was a paradox. It was good and bad, the yin and the yang, almost in a Tupac sense. Angelic on one hand and really dark on the other, right? But his impact on the culture is indelible and timeless, right? So I want to first, let's start the conversation instead of starting with Gail. Let's go to Daniel first. Your thoughts on the passing of DMX?
Oh wow, this is when you start feeling a little bit old, because unfortunately I remember DMX. I remember Dark as Hell is Hot. That's probably my second or third album that I bought with my own money in that area. And from there, if you look at just the career that he had, the consecutive number one album starts, the fact that even as a rookie, you think about it, he had two albums in the first year. You rarely got that around that time of year, outside of mixtapes. Like I said, in case you don't know, like Dark and Hell is Hot, obviously the debut album. Then almost like I said, not too long after, Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood. And what's probably most hurting about this death is the fact that in the age, unfortunately, where we had people like Tekashi 6ix9ine do what he did and act the way he does. DMX was the person that he let somebody in and not have the facade of sometimes of like, gotta have big money, gotta have, like, excuse my language, gotta have the baddest bitches and things like that. He let yourself in. Like, one of the best songs that he had was, and it's a song that I've been playing pretty much all weekend because it reminds me a lot of one of my friends, is Slippin'. It's one of those songs that touches you. Like, you around that time don't think, you never would have thought that a rapper that would come from like the hardcore scene like DMX that would put out something that introspective. And he did it time and time again. If throughout like the early themes in the early one of his albums, he always had a theme, one song where he was talking technically to the devil, like he called it Damien. towards the beginning, and then especially like in Vargas had album, he had a song where he felt he was talking to God, like the second to last song, I think. And that's the relationship that he had. And we all know he had his issues. We all know what is the drugs, the amount of children that he had. And it was a man that he didn't fake anything. Like, he gave you what he was. Earl Simmons, what you see is what Earl Simmons is what you got. And out here, like at least in the tri-state area, it really does hurt because he's one of the many people that really try to help out his community in Yonkers, particularly like in that neighborhood in School Street. Like, he was trying to help young guys trying to get into the game. He always helped out whatever somebody felt something to need. So it's very, very sad to see him go because it's one of the deaths where you start to hit like, okay, this era, it's no longer like the deaths you probably expect, like Big Daddy Kane and things like that. People in the 80s, this is the 90s guys now that are falling. And it's not like because of gunshot, this is because of, like, unfortunately, of this case, cardiac arrest. I will say this though, when it comes into the situation, even though technically on all fronts, yes, he died he officially was announced that the next day. Like, press, they kind of jumped the gun. They saw one IG post and they announced his death, and then they had to clarify, and people got really pissed off. We just have to be more careful than that. But rest in peace, Earl Simmons. You will be sorely missed.
Hey, yo, I'm slipping. I'm falling. I can't get up. Hey, yo, I'm slipping. I'm falling. I can't get up. I'm slipping. I'm falling. I got to get up. Get back on my feet so I can tear shit up. That's the infamous hook from that song that Daniel was talking about, alluding to, Slipping. That so encapsulated, so defined, not just the rapper, more importantly, the man. From such a tortured life came such impactful and at a deep level, spiritual and even beautiful music at a certain level. I'll go to you, Gail. Your thoughts on the passing of One DMX?
You know, some of the most powerful music and thoughts by artists come from their own pain. I mean, we see that all the time. But it pains me when I see my friends and their followers who admire them so much for their artistry and confuse the artistry with the way they live their lives and make them role models. And it's a cautionary tale, isn't it? Making people like this role models versus admiring the art, but separating it from the person. So I've been distressed by the way his fans have reacted and how hard this has hit everybody. And that's the part I don't like to see. I would hope that at least one person could learn from the excesses and the problems, because they take themselves out of the game prematurely and the art's lost. The rest of his art and the rest of what he could have created in his days on earth is gone. And that's truly, truly a shame.
Much like the passing of MF Doom, or the news of the passing of MF Doom at the end of 2020, this hits hard. Personally, I definitively remember when that Get At Me Dog dropped on the radio, 98. It's like, the hell is this? And he entered it took him a long time to get on mainstream, but what he did, he hit the scene with a force. And yes, he was troubled. Yes, he was scarred. Was he perfect as an individual? Absolutely not. But again, the impact that he had, the legacy that he left, um, you can't deny. And the thing that made me happy, despite of his passing, was that um, in hip hop now, particularly for our older artists, um, there's a thing about giving the legends, if you will, their flowers while they're alive, because once they're dead, you can't anymore. And X started to receive that over the latter years. Whether it's he was at the Celtics game and doing a timeout, they started bumping his music while he was at attendance, or you saw clips of him with fellow artists, or even with gospel singers, and they showing gospel acts, and they're showing him love. He got that love that he was long searching for throughout most of his life. He started to really receive it in his final years. And despite the sadness, I find some solace and some comfort in that. So I wanted to just take some time out at the beginning of this episode to give our condolences and give our thoughts on the too early passing of one Errol Simmons, aka DMX. I want to go from that sad opening to a little bit of joy here, brief joy. I want to take some personal time out to say this. For those who check the podcast out on iTunes, on Spotify, or wherever you RSS feed distributed platform, right? You'll often hear an intro talking about you listening to the Pound for Pound Box Report, where you talk all things boxing. The lady behind that, Sydney, her name, I'm not going to go her full name, but first name Sydney. She got married, ironically enough, on the 9th. We woke up early on that day, down from an emotional standpoint because of the passing of DMX. Well, personally, my day was brightened. And she got married. It was a beautiful ceremony. Even yours truly dressed up for the occasion. She got married to her to the love of her life. I'll say that. And the ceremony was beautiful. No hiccups along the way. And I'll say this. She's been through Sydney. She's been through a lot. I'm not gonna go into detail, but let's just say she's been through a lot over the past 12 months. And as much as I was saddened by the passing of DMX, my heart was filled with joy watching Sydney get married. So I wanted to give a shout out to the voice, the lady who blessed me with the intro of the Pound for Pound Boxer Report. May you have a happy marriage, wedded bliss for you and the rest of your days. I'm saying it right now. I'm giving you a shout out, Sid. I told you this Friday night. I just couldn't be more happier for you. I want to get those notes out the way. So let's get things started. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Boxer Report, Pound for Pound Boxer Report, live YouTube show and podcast and website talking all things boxing. The motto is, when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get talked about. For those who want to find out the latest information on Pound for Pound Box Report, the website is the place to go to. P4pboxerreport.com. I'm going to repeat that, P4pboxerreport.com. If you check the website, particularly the bottom portion of the website, you'll find links to where to follow us all over social media, the Facebook page, the YouTube page. The Tumblr page is technically still active. I don't use it that much, but it's still active. The Twitter page also links to where you can donate. Got a Cash Me and PayPal donation link. Let donation be the next best nation. Excuse me. If you still got some of your stimulus money or whatnot, if you want to shoot some coins to the Pound Pound Box Report, please do. $1, $2, $5, $10, whatever you can give or whatever you have free to give. Following the stimulus money, following the money from your taxes and whatnot. I know people are doing that right now. Any little bit will help the overall production of the show. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. Make sure to follow us on iTunes and Spotify. 5-star review on iTunes will get read during the show. And last but certainly not least, online link to my the link to my online coaching page. I am a coach with Beachbody.com, online coach with Beachbody.com. If you're interested in checking out any of the programs on Beachbody.com, whether it's the Morning Meltdown, whether it's the P90X series, whether it's the Insanity series, the boxing program on there, 10 rounds, Lift 4 for those who like to pump iron, 6 weeks of the world for those who really want to push themselves, bar blend for the ladies, programs that suits all your interests, all your needs, whatever you're looking for. If you're looking forward to get into shape or you want to really test yourself, or if you're interested in any of my Let's Build Together monthly fitness challenges, please check out my online link on Pound for Pound Box Report website. Got all that out the way. Let's get things.
Oh, no, wait a minute. Are we still on MySpace? Yeah, just checking. I don't want to leave stone unturned.
Yeah, I'm trying to cover everything. Let's get things going. Recapping what went down this weekend. Let's start in Oklahoma. As everybody know, Joe Smith fought Maxim Vlasov for the vacant WBO light heavyweight title. It was initially set to fight February 13th. It was postponed because of Vlasov testing positive for COVID-19 while they fought this past weekend, April 10th. Turned out to be a much better fight than I anticipated, Gail. I thought it was going to be a bit of a chess match in a clash of styles. It turned into a barn burner and an absolute war. Smith won by majority decision, but I covered this fight for 3kingsboxing.com. Shout out to them, the man behind 3 Kings Boxing, 2K, the head of media relations, Bo, who's been a past guest on the show, head writer, Bakari, senior writers, myself, and Jarrell, editor Red. Shout out for him, 3 Kings Boxing, for your latest source of boxing information. Covering the fight for 3 Kings, Gail, Smith got the majority decision, but I have to be honest here. I felt Vlasov did enough. I had 115, 113 on my scorecard. Back and forth fight, very good, but in the end, Smith was the harder puncher. But to me, Vlasov was the more determined fighter and the more active fighter. I thought that activity, the fact that he kept landing these shots, he's like a knuckleball pitcher, right? He doesn't throw anything necessarily hard, but he just throws things off speed. Knuckle curveball type of dude in the ring, from odd angles, and it kept Smith hesitant. He couldn't get off in the way he could. When he finally turned it on, okay, but even if Vlasov may have got stunned with shots, he fought back. He showed himself to be a pit bull. Do you agree with the decision?
It's one of those things where I scored it differently than the judges, but you wouldn't put it in the robbery category. It was a very close fight with quite a few swing rounds, especially through the middle of the fight. I admit at the beginning of the fight, I was very concerned by what I saw from Smith Jr. He normally comes out, like a bull out into the bull ring, and he was unsteady. Vlasov is very awkward in his own way. He has just that little dose of Tyson Fury in him. He's tall. He's got long arms. He comes at you from all over the place. And you're right, knuckleball, great description. He's not, he hits plenty hard. Let's make no mistake about that. He isn't a one-hitter quitter sort of puncher. He's not a Arthur Beterbiev. But he's relentless. His work rate's excellent, and he came to play. He may not have left with the belt, but he left with a whole lot of new fans in the United States, a new fan base who appreciate what he had to offer. It really was Vlasov that made it such an interesting nail-biter kind of fight, and it really did come right down to the championship rounds. The fight on the cards was quite even. except for the one wide scorecard. I don't know where the heck that judge was looking at. We had one card that was a little wider, but the others were decided by just a round or two. And Smith Jr. and his corner knew the fight was slipping through his fingers. This second title shot, he couldn't get it done the first time against Dimitri Bivol, who boxed the brakes off Smith. He was not going to let it happen again. He could see his ghost rising from him as he was about to lose. So give him credit for digging down, making those last 2 rounds count. He emptied the tank. He went for it. He put on 2 really good rounds, and it ended up being the difference on the cards. Even with that, I would have still given it to Vlasov, 7 rounds to 5. I don't hate the decision. I think the judges in Oklahoma, who are not used to having a whole lot of championship fights, they're seeing Smith's punches, which are harder. They are easier to see, easier to score. They're flashy. Vlasov had a lot of check hooks and inside punches and just accumulated damage layer by layer. That's harder to see. You almost see it in a mirror, in that you see the reaction of the man he's beating up. And that was Smith, who at times just looked horrible. Cut opened up over his eye early. I believe it was the second round. He handled it well. He fought through it well. He was fortunate to have Stitch Duran in his corner. That made a big difference. And Stitch said during the fight between rounds, he watched video of Vlasov and he knew he might be in for a long night, and he was. So he gets a little credit too. There was I won't necessarily say it was a controversial with a capital C incident in which Smith believed he scored a knockdown. Referee Gary Ritter quickly ruled it a foul because it was a punch to the back of the head. Smith said, listen, Vlasov ducks down. I'm taller. I'm punching down at him to begin with. And if he ducks and the punch I aimed at his face hits the back of his head, it's not my fault. Well, it's still a rabbit punch. So the referee ruled it not a knockdown. One of the judges scored it a knockdown anyway. And the funniest part of that is the judge who scored it a knockdown, despite the referee's ruling, was the referee's twin brother. So go figure. That's Oklahoma for you. But Smith Jr. gets a big win. He's going home with that WBO World Light Heavyweight belt he wanted so long. And he's now set up for a fight against another Russian, probably Artur Beterbiev, which should be a fun, fan-friendly fight to unify. And then at that point, the one belt left is with his nemesis, Dimitri Bivol. I don't think it really matters who wins between Smith Jr. and Beterbiev. I think Bivol beats either of them. So enjoy it, boys. Whoever wins, while it lasts, it ain't going to last forever.
And we'll dive into that possible / potential bout against Beterbiev. But I want to stick on this fight a little bit more. Daniel, in a lot of my circles, when I shared my write-up on Three Kings Boxing, a lot of people felt that even though it was a good fight, the wrong man had his hand raised in victory. What was your official scorecard? Who did you have winning, Smith or Vlasov?
I had a draw because there was a lot of rounds, particularly the middle rounds, where Vlasov was using the better movement, the better combination of punches, and you could tell he was starting to wear a bit on Smith. That being said, I'm going to be mad at the decision. I'm not mad at it because, like Gail mentioned, and this is pretty much a problem, unfortunately, worldwide when it comes into it. When you have a situation where a fight is evenly matched, where you have a guy who's using more substance, who's using more style, versus a guy who is, while improving, still more or less a power puncher, then what's going to catch your eyes more? And what caught the eyes more was the fact that when they exchanged, especially when they hit both of them at once, Smith's punches looked like they hit Vlasov harder than Vlasov's punches. Even though Vlasov, for a good stretch in the middle of that fight, particularly in the 9th round, it looked like he pretty much had taken away the entire confidence of Joe Smith. But not the 9th round, the 10th round. And then Smith just turned it on in the championship rounds. He found some type of energy well and just went after Vlasov, did what he had to do, and he earned a victory. Like I said, I'm not going to say anything about robberies. Joe Smith, for all his purposes, earned that victory. What feels tainted, unfortunately, a little bit is the fact that Vlasov technically was playing against house money. Like the whole high package we know was pretty much pro Joe Smith. Almost absolutely nothing to Vlasov. Everything was Joe Smith, which he earned. Like I said, has a hell of a story. And then it's like, oh, by the way, he's just fighting this guy. That's pretty much what wound up happening to him, and it does hurt you sometimes as judges when you feel like you're technically facing, like I said, a house fighter.
Sorry, I was on mute. It's anticipated that Smith will now, to Gail's earlier point, fight Arthur Bertobiev. That's kind of was agreement in place before this bout. Here's my question to both of you. Given how rough of a go Smith had it against Vlasov, should he immediately go for a fight against Bertobiev? Would you like to see a rematch between Smith and Vlasov? If he fights Bertobiev next, how long should his camp hold back to make that fight happen? Because look, it's what, April? If they try to put that fight in summer, or I think that's a bad move because Smith did take punishment. He was cut. Your thoughts on supposedly impending bout between Smith and Vlasov?
I don't think he has to roll back a fight with Vlasov. He doesn't need to go through that war again. I don't think it would be a whole lot different. And the outcome could affect his potential unification fight with Beterbiev. You don't want to risk that. It's such a makeable fight. Top Rank's all about it. Top Rank represents both of them. What he needs to do now is first go on his damn honeymoon. He put his honeymoon aside when the fight got delayed in February due to Vlasov's positive COVID test. They did go through with the wedding itself, but then he went right back to camp. So they put the honeymoon on hold. Kelly, his bride, now deserves a proper honeymoon, and hope they have a great time. Then they need to make that fight for, maybe 4, 5, 6 months out. Make it maybe an October fight right after the Mexican Independence Day blast of fights we get in September. Make this the lead into the last few months of fall, if they can get it done that fast. Give himself a nice long rest now, good proper camp, learn all he can, and take your best shot, man. Dare to be great. That's what it's all about. That should be a bit more of a straightforward fight. Beterbiev is stronger than Vlasov, but nowhere near as tricky. And we don't know what kind of a chin he has, really. You gotta say, Vlasov has incredible staying power. He took some shots, and he was buzzed several times. He never wobbled, and he never went down. Very impressive.
What say you, Daniel, on the prospect of a fight between Smith and Beterbiev? When should it happen? Should it happen? First of all, should it happen? If you believe it should, when?
That's the key part to me. Should it happen? Personally, like to me, the fair thing, the logical thing to do would be to rematch Vlasov. Not only just because it was such a close fight, it's because we already have, unfortunately, right now enough evidence to show that a fighter coming back, especially his first fight, coming back from COVID, is not his best self coming back into it. We've already have enough evidence to show how it's going to look like. We saw with how Jermell Charlo looked before he fully recovered. You saw a couple weeks ago what happened to Povetkin after doing it. Yes, Vlasov didn't look as bad as Povetkin, but like I said, there's still enough evidence to show it. Now, like I said, that's the logical thing to do. We're dealing with boxing here. Fairness and logic don't always apply. So if you're Joe Smith, obviously you're going to try to make the fight with Beterbiev. It's the easiest fight you can make. Star Boxing and Top Rank all working together in this. And like our good friend Jake Donovan actually mentioned on Twitter a couple weeks ago when Jermell Charlo won, and I talked about it, I think, last week, you can set something up in the fall. Now that you have a championship, you can definitely set something up close to Mexican Independence Week or a little bit afterwards. And why not do it? Why not do a homecoming? Well, technically it won't be a homecoming because it'll be Nassau County, not Suffolk. But why not try to plan that? Plan a fall fight, Nassau Coliseum, you, Jermell Charlo, and definitely put out Beterbiev because there's enough Russians in the tri-state area where they will show up for Beterbiev if the crowds are allowed. And we know there's going to be a plenty amount of people, whether it's Union or just Long Islanders from the Mastic area, they're going to come by and will definitely come in to cheer for Joe Smith. That's the sensible thing to do when it comes to money. And then you'll see what happens, because if he wins out, yeah, Bibble will beat him unless Joe Smith catches him again. We have to remember that if that fight with Bibble was probably 20 seconds longer, there's a chance that Joe Smith would have stopped Bibble. So I would say go with the money, go with Beterbiev, even though like the fair thing would be rematch Vlasov.
You mentioned the fair thing. The key word being fair. Fairness in boxing sometimes seems to be an oxymoron. As much as I would like to see Smith Vlasov rematch and others as well, the reality is that money talks, and the money is in a Smith versus Beterbiev fight on ESPN either this summer or early fall. Vlasov will be unfortunately viewed as an afterthought. He will not get another chance at Smith. He may fight again, maybe on the undercard of Vlasov, of a fight between Beterbiev and Smith, but he's not going to fight Smith again, not for the foreseeable future, because let's keep it a buck. Bob Arum has plans here vis-a-vis that light heavyweight landscape. He wants to see Smith and Beterbiev, and because he wants to see it, that fight is going to happen. That's going to be primary. That's going to be his A1 focus right now. So it's going to suck for Vlasov, but Smith and Beterbiev is going to be the next fight. When we will get it, who knows? I'm guessing fall, in order to let that cut heal on Smith, but that is going to be the eventual matchup. Let's move on to some other fights here, and let's go from Oklahoma to Connecticut. And we've talked a lot about Jaron Ennis, talking about his talent on the one hand, and then on the other hand, comparing him to the other rising young talented rising prospect / contender now, Virgil Ortiz, right? Ortiz had his kind of showcase test, if you will, when he fought Maurice Hooker a few weeks back. He passed that test. Ennis had, if you want to call it a quote-unquote test, against Sergey Lipinets, former champion at 140 pounds. And there's still questions to be asked about Boots Ennis Daniel. But just from an aesthetic standpoint, in terms of his skill and his physical ability, he passes with flying colors. He made easy work of Lipinets. That was a no contest. He made Lipinets look like, again, Bob Hope's cousin, no hopes, on his way to a 6-round stoppage. Don't want to be presumptuous here, but he has that it factor about him in terms of in the ring boots, and there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, we're seeing the new maturation of the welterweights slowly come to fruition. Virgil, at his test, like you mentioned it, and it looks like he has passed with flying colors. And Boots just made sure he passed with flying colors. And this was a very tough fight because both of these incidents, when it came to Virgil, it was a former champion, somebody that would have probably given fits if it was a boxing match. With Ennis, it was somebody that was tough, durable, coming up a weight class, or maybe his power's coming up into it, and he was never knocked down before. Both of them pretty much brushed everything off from what they needed to do. And Ennis, the way he ended it, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. Not the knockout of the night, but it wasn't beautiful. But it was beautiful. Now, the main thing now that you have to position is, we know how the PBC division is, how stacked they are at welterweight. Boots now has to be able to position himself where maybe he has to get the ear of Errol Spence in order to get himself noticed and come to attention. Maybe he has to knock on Sean Porter's door and say, I want to fight an actual former world champion at welterweight. So the doors are open because, barring any political issues aside, we have to admit this. 3 or 4 years down the line, Virgil Ortiz and Boots Ennis, if everything lines up, they're on the collision course.
Absolutely. Ennis Gale, he still hasn't been hit hard, so we don't know how his ability to take a punch. But if we had a show during a show a few weeks back recapping Ortiz and Hooker, the question was, is Ortiz ready for a Terrence Crawford? Is he ready for the big dogs, the elite at 147 pounds? If folks want to say put him in the ring against the best, he's ready now. Can we make that? Should we make that same argument against Ennis? Because in this fight, Lipinets was supposed to give him a test, and Boots looked like he didn't even need to get out of first gear in order to just easily dispose of this guy. That was something.
How relaxed was he? It was the most impressive thing to me about the whole fight. This was a big step-up fight for him. Lipinets is durable. Now, admittedly, Lipinets is normally a 140 pounder. I mean, that's really his natural weight class. That's where he's always performed best. So a lot like Jamel Herring and Carl Frampton, Boots Ennis was quite a bit bigger than Lipinets. Still, he shouldn't have been able to blow him out the way he did so quickly. But it was how relaxed he was, just going about his business, doing what he needed to do. His post-fight interview had the same vibe. Yep, I just did my job. Yeah, I was so relaxed in there. That's going to take him a long way. And maybe he's got a great chin. Maybe he doesn't. We don't really know. But he might be one of those fighters whose best defense is his offense, that nobody wants to dare get right up against him because of those power shots coming back at them. There's a lot to be said for that. Makes for a very fan-friendly fighter as well, which Ennis definitely is. Now, if he wants to go after the big dogs, and any of them are actually willing to get in the ring with him, great. I don't think that's going to happen. I'll tell you, the guy I think it is a makeable fight, is a name, and would be interesting to see is Keith Thurman. Now, Keith's coming off his loss to Pacquiao. I heard Keith doing an interview, probably a week and a half ago. He claims he's, getting ready to come back. He's training hard. Between the lines, I still didn't really hear his heart completely in it, but he does want work. And, Boots barely cracked a sweat. He didn't have a mark on him, so he isn't going to need a long break. Maybe there's a Thurman fight before the end of the summer. But what I really do love is in the welterweight division, as you said, Michael, when you introduced this segment, just like we've got the four princes coming up all together, taking over their division in lightweight, we've now got Boots Ennis, Virgil Ortiz Jr., and a fighter we're going to talk about here in a few minutes, Conor Benn. Who knew he was going to have a breakout performance this weekend? So we've got four princes, but we've got the triple threat trio here at welterweight, the next generation emerging, and I really like what I see.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about Conor Benn in a second. I want to stick to this card that Ennis Lipinets was the headliner on the undercard. Gail Jerwin Ancajas making his return after a 16-month layoff. He defended the IBF 115-pound title against Jonathan Rodriguez. I wasn't able to see this fight when I was at work, and two, when I got back, I was covering fights with Rookies Boxing, the Smith Vlasov card. But from what I've read and from the little bit of highlights that I've seen, it turned out to be, after a bit of a slow start, a terrific bout. I'm going to give the floor to you and Daniel to describe what you saw and your analysis of Ancajas post-fight, and what do you think is his future?
He's always been the forgotten title holder at super flyweight. He hasn't always fought in front of American audiences. He doesn't have the personality that translates in quite the same way, certainly not as much as Juan Francisco Estrada or Ramon Gonzalez. And even in his own country, he's a little bit overshadowed, of course, by Manny Pacquiao to start with, and some others, Donny Nietes and so forth. And he'd been out of the ring 16 months, I believe 16 months. Boy, those first few rounds, he showed every bit of it. For a super flyweight, I would have called him sluggish, very slow. Punch rate was low. Rodriguez, his opponent, who was not very well known to any of us, was being cautious. So those first few rounds, I thought, whoa, man, they look like they're moving underwater, especially for this division. But to their credit, Rodriguez got a little bolder. Ancajas warmed himself up. And by the time we got to the fourth, fifth, sixth round, they had, stepped it up. They'd finally shifted into some higher gear. And we got us our typical small division phone booth slugging away fight. And it was fun to watch. Neither of them have quite the finesse of the other big names in the division. But hey, for entertainment value, once we got past those first few difficult rounds, it was great fun to watch. Ancajas did score a knockdown of Rodriguez. Rodriguez, to his credit, shook it off, finished the fight on his feet. It was clearly Ancajas' fight. The cards were a little bit all over the place. We had a 115, 112 card, 116, 111. 117, 110 was way too wide because Rodriguez did not embarrass himself at all. And he's a worthy opponent for some of the other bigger names if they need work or if he wants to come back and give it a try. I imagine he learned a lot from this fight. And, he's right in there as a potential opponent and work his way back up the line. So now this is Ancajas' 9th title defense. He is currently the active boxer with the most consecutive title defenses of all active professional boxers, men or women, which is very impressive. Where he goes from here, he kind of got to wait out everybody else. He said all the right things about wanting the big name and wanting to unify. But, nobody's really interested in making him a dance partner. And it probably won't until the guys at the very top, particularly Estrada and Chocolatito, sort things out among themselves. So what he needs to do is stay busy, take every opponent that comes his way, no matter how high or low ranked they are. He cannot sit out another 16 months, not with so much action in this division. And he needs to stay in front of American audiences, even if that means, like on Saturday, that he's not the main event. He needs to just put his head down and stay busy.
Let's extend the conversation to you, Daniel, based off what Gail's last points about Ancajas and what he needs to do and how he wants the big fights, right? Ancajas, when he won the title and all of his other defenses, it was with Bob Arum. He's now signed a deal with PBC. This bout was on Showtime. As Gail noted, he says that he wants the big name. 115 is high key loaded. You don't just have Estrada and Chocolatito, right? You got Ioka, who's WBO champion. Donnie Nietes has come back, right? Will the move from top rank to be PBC, Daniel, do you think it gets him in a better position to get the big fights that he wants? And who do you think amongst those big names will kind of bite the bait, if you will, and step into the ring with him?
This is the pessimist to me now talking. The answer is none. Right now, their eyes right now are on each other. And that's what puzzled me so much when he made the move. Because PBC doesn't have a lot of fighters because of 115. I mean, you have to remember, Rodriguez was a mandatory. So it wasn't a situation where they plucked him off from his. He had to fight him. And unfortunately, when everybody signed each other, when it comes to our Cajas, we have to be blunt. You're not going to get Chocolatito. You're not going to get Gallo. And you're not going to get Castano. Because they have other targets already in mind. So like Gail mentioned, like he has to keep himself busy, and make sure that he gets the attention of whoever winds up winning this mini tournament that the WBC set up for themselves when it comes to their belt. And maybe you
excuse me, Daniel. Let me throw in. I forgot to throw in Srisakat in that mix as well. So my apologies for that. Proceed.
Well, and let's not forget Quadras either.
Yes.
Quadras is in that mix too. So like I said, there's a lot of eyes, but they're all on each other. He's unfortunately still in that space where he's not kind of going to be able to get into it. The only one that could probably get into it, and it just depends upon Japanese politics, is Kazuto. Because we know the big will he's on. And we also know that he's not exactly right now the darling for various reasons of the Japanese Boxing Council. So he may be the one that bites the bullet into it. But I don't see it. I just don't see it happening unless Ancajas makes another move that puts him in the realm where the zone has to pay attention to him. I don't see it happening anytime soon.
Let's move from that card in Connecticut to the UK. And Gail mentioned this guy's name, this kid's name, Conor Benn, the son of a former middleweight and super middleweight champion Nigel Benn. He headlined a card over in England, fought Samuel Vargas, and to my surprise, he blitzed him, took him out in a round, Daniel. As impressive as Boots Ennis fight was against Lipinets, I have to give a nod to Conor and like give him kudos too, because I didn't see that coming. Did you?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. My mic was down. But no, I didn't expect that. I did not expect that. I figured Sammy Vargas would give him some tough rounds, give him some service rounds that he needs. I did not expect that blitz to come the way it did. But part of me made me happy because then that means one of the offspring of the great rivalry between Chris Eubanks and Nigel Benn can actually live up to their potential. I'm sorry, Eubanks Jr., you're just not doing it. But this now sets it up almost completely like the way the welterweight division has been set up previously. When the Floyd the Floyd Manning era, especially the latter part, where you kind of had that one UK champion that could fall into it, like that case that we all know that was Kell Brook. That one UK champion that could hold the flag for the other side while everybody else here is on this side of the Atlantic. Conor Benn could actually do that. He'll probably have to move up first and get some more fights in, probably get a European belt as well. So that's going to be a very interesting dynamic into it because now we've seen him. Okay, we have Virgil Ortiz, who represents Texas, like in the Southwest area. We obviously have Boots Ennis, and now we have, in this case, Conor Benn. The welterweight division they don't rebuild, they just reload. And that division is looking to get stacked once again. And good on Conor for doing it. Good on Conor Benn for doing it because the more great fighters you have in the division, the better it gets.
Conor made a splash for sure, Gail. He's in the post fight. He talked about he wants a fight against Amir Khan. I'll be honest and say I'm not moved by that. Khan, I get nothing from him at this point of his career. We saw what happened to him in his last bout against Bud Crawford. I just think he's past his prime. And what's the point? Outside of the fact that he wants a fight against Khan again, I don't want to see it. Where do you think he should go? You mentioned him and Boots, like a comparison, if you will. I think Ennis is a level above Conor at this point. But with this bout, it proves to me that that Conor Benn is ready to make the next step of his career. I don't want to see Amir Khan, but he's ready to make his move now at 147. Conor.
Absolutely, yeah. Please, Conor, don't hurt Amir. Please, no, don't do that. Amir barely got past Sammy Vargas, and that was 2.5 years ago. We don't want to see the carnage. Let Amir do his thing and be a retired athlete celebrity in Great Britain, which he is. He's reality TV star, all kinds of stuff. He's got plenty to keep him busy. He doesn't need a young gun like Conor Benn to beat the crap out of him proves nothing. Very similar advice as I would have given Ancajas had he asked me. Stay busy. Yeah, you want the big names. Chances are you're not going to get them right away. Don't let that keep you on the shelf. Stay in front of people. He's a sizzling personality. He's willing to be outrageous. He taunted Sammy Vargas in Spanish at the weigh-in. I love that. I love it. Good for him. Entertaining. Shows him making an effort. And he just needs to take on everybody who will give him some work in the ring, no matter who that is. And eventually he'll be an undeniable star, certainly in the UK, to the point the bigger names will want to fight him. A lot of the bigger names are willing to fight a guy like a Ryan Garcia, who have a following. And love it, hate it, like it, loathe it, you can't deny that in today's sports universe, particularly in combat sports like boxing, you have to be good in the ring. Obviously, you have to perform. You have to put out an athletic effort that shows excellence. However, you can get yourself there faster and you can make yourself a lot more attractive as an opponent. Even if you're dangerous, if you bring the audience, you bring the eyeballs, you bring the money, that makes a difference. And Conor's going to be one of those guys. And we're going to eventually see, whether their following is more impressive than their fists, but they're going to get that chance because of it. And it's really important for these young guys to promote themselves, make sure they're visible, they're memorable, and that they bring an automatic fan base to buy those tickets, buy the swag, and eventually pay for those pay-per-views.
On the undercard, I'm going back to you, Gail. Savannah Marshall made the first defense of her WBO women's middleweight title against Maria Lindberg, a late substitute. She cut through Lindberg like a hot knife through butter, stopping her in 3. I don't want to go up in terms of recapping this fight because we knew what was going to happen even before Lindberg stepped in as a late substitute, right? Because her previous opponent stepped out. I think she tested positive for COVID. I could be wrong. It's obvious at this point that the fight right now is in women's boxing, outside of anything surrounding Katie Taylor and Jessica McCaskill. The fight to be made is Marshall and Clarissa Shields at 160 pounds. Shields continues, and after the fight, after Marshall defeated Lindberg, she said she wants Clarissa feels she hits too hard. Shields insists that in order to make the fight show me the money. At this point, can we get all the talking aside, right? Do you think this fight will eventually happen this year?
Shields is running out of options. So I would like to see this become perhaps a trilogy if it goes there. Get this fight, this first one on the books with a guaranteed rematch clause so that it's a 2-fight deal. Makes a lot of sense for both women. I'll tell you what, based on that performance this weekend, Shields may call herself the GOAT, and she has certainly accomplished a lot. Her Olympic pedigree is super impressive. She's chased belts and she's collected plenty. But damn, nobody on the women's side has the punching power of Savannah Marshall.
I'm telling you right now. I got a lot of respect for Shields. She's the sister has accomplished a lot. And she can talk all she wants about how Savannah Marshall was too slow for her and whatnot. But I've said it before and I said it again. Savannah Marshall is a women's equivalent of Tyson Fury in there.
Yes, she is.
How slithery she is. She may look gangly and awkward, but she's awfully effective. She doesn't have to be the quote unquote speediest. It's just timing.
No, if you've got
very well.
If you've got an eraser like that, you only have to make it connect once.
She can
right?
time you very well. She has the height. She has the length. She has a boxing brain. She's hard to hit because she doesn't just, yes, she may come forward, but she does so using constant head movement. Uh, Shields would be the favorite, but if you think that she's just going to blow Savannah Marshall out the water and dominate her in the same way she did Christina Hammer when Shields unified the middleweight title before moving down to 154, I don't think so.
No, I don't either. Savannah Marshall is just twisted steel. She proves that you don't have to see a lot of musculature on anyone, man or woman, to have that kind of power. I mean, you just practically see the steel fibers on her under the skin. Every square inch counts on her, and she's also incredibly calm. I mentioned how relaxed Boots Ennis was. Marshall's very much the same. I find that sometimes Clarissa, who is a very emotional person, lets the heat get to her. And that's where Savannah also has an advantage. I'm super excited to see this. I hope they don't, mess around and dance around each other and accuse each other of ducking. Don't take a page out of the men's playbook. Don't go there. We can be better than that. Make this fight, ladies. Make it a 2-fight deal, with an option for a third, and give us some great entertainment. We're ready.
Go to you, Daniel. Shields has talked about how she has offers in MMA and whatnot, and a deal on the table in excess of $1 million. I have no problem with her taking that money. However, she can't leave the squared ring. She can't leave the squared circle without getting in the ring with Savannah Marshall. She has to fight her at this point.
Yes, not a matter. This is a question of not matter if or when. There's one thing we have to give credit to Clarissa. She'll fight whoever is going to feel like he's challenging her. Whoever she feels is going to get more clout with her despite the accolades that she's already received. They're obviously heaping a lot of praise on Marshall right now. All of it earned, mind you. All of it earned. But that could actually feed Clarissa and feed her like inner. And sometimes emotion's a good thing when it comes to it. It'll make you angry enough to make you a decision that otherwise you would be too cautious to do. This is the fight to make for the women at middleweight, because unless somehow, some way, you have McCaskill say, I want to go up 2 weight divisions to fight Clarissa Shields, or I want to go down 2 weight divisions to fight Katie Taylor.
McCaskill's trainer manager, he's asshole enough to make Shields come down to 147.
Well, no, we're not saying that he's being asshole enough, but we also know that she could say that I'll go down 2 weight divisions to fight Katie Taylor because the money's there. But unless that something happens, Shields doesn't have a lot of options. That's the key part. She does not have that many options as far as credible things in boxing. Now, she does have that out in MMA, where she can say, like, hey, well, if the ring won't give me what I want, the octagon will. But eventually, you're going to have to come back to the ring. Unless you fully retire from boxing and fully dedicate yourself to MMA, which I don't think she will. We've seen enough of how women that have done that. Normally, they go back to the ring after a while. So, Clarissa, have your fun, make your money, boo-boo, but eventually you two are going to have to cross paths. And that's going to be a lot of fun to see, because that should be a fight. That should be the fight where Clarissa says, I want this to be 3 rounds, 3 minutes. We can't have a fight like this just be in that 2-minute crutch right now that women's boxing is facing. Make this fight and make the case for 3-minute rounds in this fight.
And I think I'll just leave that point, that topic right there, because this is it. In boxing, in the sweet size, there are a few options out there for Shields. I mean, she became undisputed at 160. She became undisputed at 154, right? People talk about how she doesn't have quote unquote competition in previous outings. She has it now. She has it now. The question is, will it get made? Fingers crossed that hope it happens, because if it does, it's one of the best fights in the sport, men or women. It's one of the best fights in boxing, period. And I'm not even going to say gender specific. It's one of the best fights in boxing, period. Let's hope that all parties can come together. Hearn, Shields team, they can come together behind the scenes and hammer out a deal. That's it. Let's move on to some news here and talk a proposed bout during the summer. I did a write-up of this on 3kingsboxing.com last week, and it looks like, Gail, there's some rumblings that Errol Spence is on the verge of returning in July. There's word on these boxing streets is that that he's going to fight Ugas in July, either on the 3rd or on the 10th. Proposed sites either in Houston or in Dallas. On the undercard of this proposed bout was going to be a pay-per-view bout between was rumored to be a pay-per-view bout between Spence and Ugas. You will have a fight for the undisputed world title at 154 pounds as Jermell Charlo, bringing his titles, IBF, BA, BC titles, a proposed bout against Bryant Castano. If it happens, Gail, could be one of the bigger events of the summer outside of proposed bout between Joshua and Fury. Your thoughts on it if it comes off?
I like it. I say it on the show all the time. Unification should be the #1 goal where possible. So we got belts in play. Push them all into the center of the table, go all in, and the fans will be the winners. I hope it happens.
I'll go to you, Daniel. Spence returning possibly in a unification bout this summer on the undercard about a fight for the undisputed honors at 154 pounds. Can't beat that.
No, you can't. And it's a good thing to get into it instead of just having this weird little discussion about making the big fight right now, which unfortunately I know it's gonna sour a lot of people's taste in the bout. Like Bud's already done enough of that on his own. And let's face it, like it's better to talk about fights that actually being made than fights that don't look like they're close to being made. So this is going to be a good one. The one thing that's surprising probably to me is the fact that he's going to be the headliner. Because by coming in, okay, so unification, but then you have the undisputed 154. That to me was kind of know that Spence makes the move.
Your voice is going out on us, Daniel.
I'm sorry.
Could you repeat that?
No, I said I'm surprised that Jermell is not the one being the headliner, considering undisputed is actually probably a little bit better option. However, we know Spence makes the most money. So that should be a very, very, very interesting dynamic. And it's good to see him back. That's the main thing. It's good to see Errol Spence back.
I mean, if we can't get the fight between Spence and Crawford and it's I'll just say that I'll leave it I'll leave it out there in terms of whose fault it really is. I have my opinion. I know others have their opinions as well. Why that fight is not happening right now, or even being negotiated behind the scenes. The fact is, we don't have Spence Crawford right now, and it sucks. But we can't get that fight. I have no problem. I'm not mad at the fight. That's at the fact that Spence is going to fight. Ugas is being rumored, and again, to Gail's earlier point, who can be mad at a fight for the undisputed title in any division? So Charlo, Castano, bring that shit on. I'm down for it all, and let's hope that the rumor turns into reality. Has been talked about again, happening on either July the 3rd or the 10th in Texas, either Houston or Dallas. All the possibilities right now. Let's hope it comes off. Let's go now to some previews. Preview of some fights this coming weekend in Atlanta on Triller. I refuse to talk about the main event because I have standards, but I'll talk about a fight on the undercard of that main event between Jake Paul and Askren. That's all I'm gonna say about that main event. But on the undercard of that, Regis Prograis is making his return to the ring. Daniel against Ivan Redcatch. Is this a little more than a tune-up right now for Rougarou?
Yeah, it's fair to say that. Redcatch is pretty serviceable. He's going to give you rounds. Like, he'll give you a good fight in that aspect. But yeah, this is pretty just tune-up to get him back into the game because we know even though he lost, whoever's going to win in this battle between Josh Taylor and Jose Ramirez, he's going to be the first one in line to see who among them will actually he'll be able to challenge. So this is a little bit more of a tune-up. It's the only serviceable fight that you can say on that card because I'm not going to talk about it. There is no main event this thing. Rougarou's the main event. Rougarou's the main event.
What say you, Gail, or do you want to move on?
This is a very smart thing for Prograis to do because he's getting himself in front of a new fan base. And, we can be snobby and poo-poo all we want about the stunt fight that's at the top of this card. But the fact is, we live in a social media world, ladies and gentlemen, and it's important to get eyeballs on boxing so that we grow a new fan base. That is something that young Mr. Paul and former MMA star Mr. Askren can do. They're going to bring a lot of people to the screen that are not necessarily followers of boxing. So the experienced professional boxers on the undercard have a chance to shine, and no one more than Prograis. He's a very appealing personality. He's the right age range. He's young enough to be appealing to this YouTube audience. And so he's got a chance to shine, make himself look good, and go home and find out he's got a whole lot more followers online where he's also very engaging. So it's a smart thing to do. Say what you will. Triller is building an audience. Triller appears to be getting very serious about this. They are hiring. They're putting on a very good product. If you don't like the stunt fights and the YouTubers, fine. But the production values are good. They're hiring quality commentators, the musical acts. If you just pay your money to see some of the musical lineup, you've gotten your money's worth. I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. Let the hybrid continue if it allows boxing to remain healthy. It allows guys like Prograis to get a paycheck. And we see some good fights in the mix along with the online novelty, fights, the legends, the veterans, and the professionals we've all come to enjoy.
The problem with that is I wonder if these folks who are gravitating to see Mr. Paul, will they will their interest continue moving forward in, say, a progress or a quote unquote more full-time, long-standing boxer. I'll just be polite and
You know what?
and say that.
And I'm not saying they all will. That's unrealistic. But if they're getting 1 million buys and 50 or 100,000 fans, 10% continue to follow some of the traditional boxing athletes, that's a lot. That's a lot of potential growth. Now, what boxing promoters need to do is make sure to keep the guys that are going to appear on Triller busy over under their banners and not let them just disappear and not be found by fans who are looking for them. So everybody wants to dabble over here in Twitter who is promoter agnostic, which is healthy. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. The important thing is no matter who's appearing, a veteran, these YouTube guys, the professionals, it's the matchmaking. They have to be matched at whatever level they are, and make sure that these bouts are as even and fair and interesting as they can be. And say what you will about Paul. He trains very seriously. He takes boxing very seriously. Yeah, he's only got a handful of actual professional fights under him. He's taken up the sport very late. He is putting energy into it. It's not a stunt to him. What's his upside? It's probably limited, but he's a big, strong dude. He hasn't completely embarrassed himself.
Probably.
I really don't have as much problem with it, I don't think, as you two do.
Probably. His future's probably.
Well,
it is.
To be fair,
if he keeps winning, no, it's not limited. Not at all.
No, to be fair, Gail, my issue isn't so much with Paul. It's his opponent. For various reasons. Reasons that are well documented in various test forms. That would probably be my issue. Because if you put somebody else in there, okay, fine. But to bring somebody who has had, unfortunately, that type of history into that area, even though he is still a very big name, he still has a decent record, but he has to put a lot of that in doubt considering his actions. That's probably my personal beef with it. Now, I agree with you when it comes into building the audience. Hopefully, though, it's not the same situation that we're going to be seeing, that we're actually seeing in real time with another little startup that's trying to build up and trying to use social media and whatnot. AEW, in wrestling. They have their core audience, and they're true, and they haven't done enough. They brought in celebrity, last week they brought in Mike Tyson. They're trying to build up to something where try to keep the eyes engaged. Unfortunately, they haven't done enough, and in fact, their core audience has shrunk a little bit. Triller cannot afford that, unfortunately, because unlike AEW, who's only facing one big giant conglomerate in WWE, you're facing various conglomerates in the boxing world, whether it's Top Rank, Golden Boy, Matchroom. When you go to Asia, you got to see Taiken, Mr. Honda. So, or not to mention Frank Warren in that area. So there's a lot of rivals that Triller needs to focus on and needs to either keep their eyes on the set. And they did hire people. They have hired people whose sole purpose is going to be involving boxing. So hopefully it'll be a good area in the future. And who knows, this could be a leverage play also. But the fighters themselves to maybe do what Teofimo's trying to do right now, saying oh, you don't think I'm worth this money? I'll go to put a person who actually will pay me this money. And then put, in this case, Bob, a little bit on the defensive side. So it can work well on both sides.
Well, we'll talk about Teofimo in another episode because I think low key he's really not worth that money. But that's another discussion from another day. Let's go to some comments here because we have some popping up suddenly right now. Go to the YouTube chat. Shout out to Olaf the Mighty and Unrivaled Boxing who are discussing who reacting to our earlier discussion about Smith Vlasov. Olaf says that, and I'm gonna put it up here. He says, in his opinion, that Joe Smith won. Unrivaled says, put it up right now. He said he scored a draw live, but gave Smith every swing round. Vlasov won. If anyone won, Vlasov did. Olaf said, fight of the year so far to me, though, aside from Estrada, Chocolatito. I can get that. Unrivaled said that at that moment when Vlasov went down, he felt it was a rabbit punch to the back of the head. He says, Olaf also says that Vlasov was on Queer Street and hammed up the rabbit punch in response to Unrivaled's comment. Leaning forward, most of the time they called that a knockdown, but I can understand them calling it the way they did. We just talked about that earlier. I want to thank Olaf. I want to thank Unrivaled. Thank you for your comments. Keep them coming as we get ready to come close to coming close to the end of the show. Let's move on to that discussion about Jake Paul and his significance on the sport and Triller. The thing I will say about that before we move on is that okay, they got Paul headlining and they bring it in. He's getting a lot of attention, but for Triller's sake, if they are truly invested in boxing, if they are truly investing in quote unquote boxing, I want to see them highlight more and more boxers and not just on the undercard of a Jake Paul fight. I want to see a real boxer, a real world champion, headline a show. It would be nice, put it this way, it would be nice that in the next 6 to 12 months, that Triller will feature an all boxing card of real, legit, substantive, serious boxers, not exhibitions, not YouTubers fighting, but I want to see them do a real serious top rank style, PBC style, the zone style card of substance. When we get that and it can get the same numbers, then we're going somewhere.
Well,
We're going somewhere.
But you're not going to get the same numbers. They're not built for it. By the way, you are going to get a legit world champion headlining a Triller card. His name is Teofimo Lopez.
But are we sure he's headlining that card, though?
Oh, he'll be headlining that card.
Are we sure? Because it hadn't been announced, and until it gets announced,
yeah. Oh,
I'm waiting.
You really think Teofimo is going to allow himself to be a co-main? Get out of here.
It's not. But he's fighting for someone. But he's fighting for someone else. Doesn't matter what he thinks.
Well, it does. To a point. Now, money certainly, soothes hurt feelings. But yeah, that is Triller's opportunity after having spent $6+ million on the purse bid to say, no, we're absolutely interested in legitimate world championship boxing. The rest of the card remains to be seen. But you know what? They cannot make as much money on the pay-per-view with just straight boxing, or other promoters and networks would be doing it.
Here's my point. My point is,
This
it doesn't have to be the same numbers. What I'm saying is, when they can pull the same numbers that a top ranked pay-per-view card will pull, that a Fox or Showtime on pay-per-view card can pull.
Well, let's put it this way. You're in business to make money. Why would you do that? Why would you limit yourself in that way when you have an audience who's interested not only in seeing a fight like Teofimo Lopez versus Kambosos? They're interested in Lopez. He's a personality. He's of the right age range and demographic. He's entertaining. So they want to see that. you're also going to get more eyeballs and make more money bringing in the YouTube celebrities or other novelties that they're interested in. Why would you limit your income by saying, well, I got to be a purist to do it like Top Rank? No, Triller is not pretending to be Top Rank in ESPN or Matchroom and DAZN. They're not. And you know what? Eddie Hearn has dabbled in this arena, as we know. He was the first one to put a YouTube internet fight on, and it was a sensational success. Mark my words, you're going to see more and more of these hybrid cards because they sell. And if that kind of money allows more of the legitimate matchups to get a platform, call me a sellout. I'm all for it.
If the YouTubers take equal standing to traditional stuff, I'm not gonna like it. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna like it. It would suck for me if a legit world champion would be on the undercard of a YouTube bout. To me, that's not cool.
Well, so far they haven't. So let's see what happens. Some of them want the payday, and these guys work hard enough to get the big payday. So what's it going to take? That's the decision they have to make. But the money will be there if they want it. Lopez seems to be very, very happy with this arrangement. George Kambosos, he hit the lottery with this. He might have gotten $500,000 purse outside the Triller universe if it stayed with Top Rank under their traditional arrangement. He's going to make $2 million. That is life-changing money. I don't begrudge him that. I don't.
It's a discussion now that's going to be continued now because we spent long enough on this, but it will creep back. It will keep going on future episodes. Let's move on to some other fights here. Daniel, a couple of comments here in the chat. Just before we move on, Olaf says, why would they do that when legit boxers demand obscene money? They can get more eyeballs and pay low purses to YouTube, but they're paying low purses now, but let them get more popular and see how and their purses raise while legit boxers purses may stagnate. Then we'll see. Olaf also says that Heyman broke the boxing game by the way he's overpaying fighters. If we're going to make that argument, Hearn is the one who's overpaying fighters, but I get your point because $7 million for Jesse Vargas, bruh, come on. So he doesn't deserve that, while the smaller weight fighters are getting a scintilla of that amount. But that's another discussion for another day. Let's move on here. I'll go to you, Daniel. Talk about some more fights in Hollywood, Florida on DAZN. Demetrius Andrade, who's been. Is it safe to describe him as the fighter that nobody really wants to fight at 160 to 168 pounds? Bubu Andrade making his return to the ring to defend that WBO 160-pound title against Liam Williams, mandatory contender. Is this a case of as much as Liam talks up the fight and he wants to fight and he's talking about basically how he's going to knock Bubu Andrade's head off, is it a case of just a class disparity being the difference here between the really, really talented southpaw Andrade and a Williams who's good, he's tough, but skill set not there quite, frankly?
Well, Bubu is the person right now that nobody wants to fight, both on the skill set and of the fact that he's the type of person that will hurt himself.
Oh, your mic's going in and out on us again, Daniel.
Sorry, I was standing up. Now, what I was saying when it came to Bubu is that he's a fighter that nobody likes to face for various reasons. First, because he has a very, very, at least for his weight class, awkward but very effective gift sense. Sorry, skill set that makes it tough for fighters, makes him the avoided fighter, makes him, in many ways, the Paul Williams and Margarito of his division, in many ways. But he also is the type of person that tends to hurt himself outside of the ring, and we don't mean by injury. That's the part that's probably difficult into it, because you can tell, even when he's leading up to this fight, he's been trying to get himself into the Canelo sweepstakes by any means necessary. He almost had a chance when he would have fought Billy Joe Saunders, but we know what happened there. Luckily, that time it wasn't his fault. But that's the part where you have to put yourself out there. You have to make the fights. You don't have to do anything weird to make sure to get yourself into that picture, because right now, Canelo's wheelhouse is anywhere between 160 and 168. 175 if you pay him enough money, probably. But this is something where he really needs to step up, because if Canelo does leave the middleweight division really behind, then you need to set yourself up for the next best person. Obviously, right now, the next best person you can say is either Maul or Triple G, right at the top of your head. You have to put yourself in that conversation where it's not only hardcore guys saying it, but regular boxing fans will say, like, yeah, I want to see Andrade face Triple G. Yeah, I want to see him fight Jermell. It has to be a fight that goes into it, and I'll give respect to Liam Ennis. He is doing his best to talk up the fight. He needs to, because there's a pretty decent payday, and he may surprise us. We've seen plenty of fighters surprise us before recently, but this is Boo Boo's fight to lose, and it is his opportunity to waste.
I'll go to you, Gail. Do you agree with Daniel's general assessment that even though Williams is tough and he's willing and he's hard fighting, this is really Andrade's fight to lose?
Yeah, absolutely. And Andrade needs to look good, make the most of the opportunity. And this is starting to become the common refrain through this whole show. He needs to stay busy. I know he's ambitious and he does deserve title opportunities. He needs the champions at this point to get in the ring with him. But he can be hard to watch. He, again, fan followings are important. You need the eyeballs on the screen. So he can overcome some of that by not letting people forget him between fights while he's, trying to coax the bigger names into the ring. Get in there with whoever will get in there with you, and the payday is good enough. I mean, it's better than sitting around and waiting on the shelf and, grousing about it. Get in there, do what you can to entertain, whether that's with your personality or with your performance in the ring. And just don't let the clock tick. We're coming out of the pandemic year where a lot of guys at the high end, I'll give them a pass. On the other hand, there were plenty who did get in there, who were willing to take slight pay cuts to stay busy. And they're the ones that have benefited from this. Say what you will about Canelo. Once he finally got over his issues and got back in the ring late last year, by the time he fights Billy Joe, he will have fought 4 times. That's impressive at his level. That's the example that guys like Andrade and the others should be following. Stay busy. Is Canelo facing a world beater every time he goes out there? Hell no. Of course, that's difficult for him. That's challenging. But he's taking the fights.
And I agree. If Andrade can't get Canelo in the ring, if he can't get Charlo in the ring, his best option at this point is to stay active, keep himself on the television screen so fans can watch him, and he can for once get himself a fan base, something he has had trouble doing throughout his entire career. Too many long periods of inactivity he's over 30 now. It's hard enough getting fights at this point. You have to fight. You have to get in the ring. You have to display your skills. Give something to have the people gravitate toward you, and you can't do. And the only way he can do that at this point, as you said, Gail, fight. That's what he has to do at this point. Get this fight with Williams. Come back with another fight before the end of the year. Keep yourself on the brains of boxing fans, and have them talk about you. Have them be your own street team, if you will. And that should be his goal if he can't get the fight, and take whoever's available. Will I think Jaime Munguia, he's fighting soon. Try to get a fight with him at 160 pounds. If you can't get if you can't get Canelo, if you can't get Charlo, Triple G's still out there. Try to get a fight with him. So yeah, fight. Stay active. The times of being out for long spells, 6 months, a year, that has got to stop at this point. So let's see what he does in his fight against Liam Williams. Tony Harrison, who upset Jermell Charlo 2 years ago to win the junior middleweight title, lost the rematch. He's making his return to the ring against Brian Parrella. To me, this is just a simple thing of size mattering. Harrison is a 154-pounder natural. Well, Parrella, to me, even though he's tall at 6'1", most of his career has been at welterweight, right? And I have not forgot how his fight against Ugas in 2016. He got stopped in 4. And I believe in his last fight last year, his last outing in the ring last year, he lost that by TKO as well. So am I wrong to just simply put this on the fact that Harrison is just bigger, stronger, and he'll use that advantage in size and power to eventually take Parrella out?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's what he needs. He needs a good, flashy performance. This is a fairly quiet boxing weekend compared to last weekend. So he has an opportunity to break through the clutter a little bit and shine after some rough outings. I heard an interview with him today that Harrison had done recently. I'm very impressed by his attitude. He knows what he needs to do. He seems very willing to put the work in. He wants it. I like the hungriness about him. I also like his very candid assessment of himself. And we have to remember, Harrison has had an extremely rough pandemic year. His father, who was his trainer, died of COVID-19 this past year. So coming now back into the ring and going forward without his dad in his life and literally in his corner, so he's got to go with a completely new training team. That's a big adjustment for him, but he seems like it's a challenge he needs to tackle as much as he wants to tackle. I wish him well. I'd like to see what he can do. There's a lot of potential emotional healing out there for him in this. And that's, I think, just as important to him from what I gleaned out of the interview. He's a very determined guy. I like that too.
I'll go to you, Daniel. Your thoughts? Am I being too simple with my assessment here of Harrison just being too big and too strong for this dude?
It's a difficult part when you're moving up, but he does have the height to make it serviceable. However, Harrison, like I said, is the natural guy at this division, and we have to remember he kind of has a chip on his shoulder when it goes into it. He wants to get back into the sweep. He probably wants another shot at Mel, at least. So you have somebody that's motivated, somebody that is serviceable at the world level, and somebody who, let's face it, we don't always have the best confidence in Tony Harrison for various reasons, but he's out there to prove people wrong. Yeah, it is very simplistic. It's a guy that's coming up in weight, whereas a guy that's naturally probably bigger and naturally more likely stronger because he's been in that division longer. So this isn't probably one where Harrison should be able to work things out. Hey, and get yourself back in the sweepstakes. Get yourself back in the 154 roulette table that's getting filled up pretty easily right now.
And I think we're going to shut down things on that note. Read a couple more comments from Olaf here about Andrade. Says that Boo Boo hasn't even had a win like Boots did last week. Why is he a 30-plus-year-old contender and still has not fought a top 10 in his division? He also says that Andrade has been a contender since 2010 and still hasn't fought anyone halfway decent. I can't push back against that. Talented, yes, he wants these guys. Well, let me push back against somewhat because he has been somewhat avoided. In truth, Canelo is not too. There's not been a great incentive on the part of Canelo to fight him. He could have fought him at 54. He could have fought him at 60. If Canelo's team would have put a decent offer on the table, Andrade would have accepted it. But and I think if Andrade was a number one, well, let me take that back. I think he was a number one contender at one point. But still, I don't think Canelo's scared. Let me put it that way. He's just not interested for some reason. He's just not interested. So while it's true that Andrade hasn't fought an elite guy, right? And at times he has been his own worst enemy outside of a ring from a PR vantage point. He has been avoided, right? Charlo could have fought this dude by now. Heyman gave him the free will to seek about with anywhere from anybody across the street. Why has there been serious attempts for that fight to happen? Some of that is on Charlo, right? Some of it is on Canelo, the reason that fight hasn't happened yet. Triple G's out there. I hadn't heard Golovkin say, I want to fight with Andrade too. So I think it's kind of both sides here. That's a bad word given our political climate. But still, it's been equal fault, let me say, in terms of why Andrade hasn't had that significant fight. Any last words, Daniel, Gail, before we shut things down?
I'll say this, like one of the reasons I'll point out that Andrade hurts himself a lot. You have to remember, he had a chance to fight Mel for his title as a title defense. That would have been a top caliber fight. But he decided to what? To listen to Jay-Z, sign a piece of paper he shouldn't have signed. And ultimately, like I said, it's led on to this derailment. Most of it's his being avoided, but we have to take into account a lot of it is also his own fault.
Yeah, it's true. And I think he's finally starting to realize it. I don't know if it's too late for him or not. But he needs to start doing the heavy lifting of marketing himself, making himself attractive. His style in the ring, has never been wildly entertaining or thrilling. Yeah, he's very technically competent, no question about it. But he just doesn't have the sizzle factor, and it's hurt him.
Yeah, and I think we're going to shut down things on that note. I want to thank Olaf. I want to thank Unrivaled for their comments during the show. It was greatly appreciated. If you hadn't hit that like button, please do on YouTube. If you hadn't hit that subscribe button, please do on YouTube. For those who are listening now or listening later, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're checking us out on iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, and any other RSS distributed podcast platform, make sure you follow us there as well. Please leave your comments on iTunes and on Spotify, particularly on iTunes. A 5-star review will get read during the show. We'd love to hear your questions, your comments, what we're doing good with the show, what we could do better with the show, how can we improve things. I'm going to go around the panel here. Though I didn't start with ladies first this week for reasons that we discussed at the beginning of the show, I'll start ladies first now. Gail from Communities, Digital News, creator and founder and owner of the Falcon Rally Group. For those who want to talk the sweet science, let the folks know where they can find you. For those who want to talk media, let the folks know where they can find you, and give a plug to the Falcon Valley Group and inform folks what that is.
Well, that is easy. That is my Skills That Pay the Bills public relations firm, and it's falconvalleygroup.com. Or for the purposes of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, my regular boxing column lives on Community's Digital News, and that's COMMDIGI news.com, comdiginews.com. I'm also an irregular contributor to New York Fights, nyfights.com. We have a brand new story up in their regular series, Who Won the Weekend? Very honored to be part of a big gang of folks weighing in on who won the weekend. And there are a lot of different answers. So you'll find that on nyfights.com today.
And you can check her out on TMZ Live on a bi-weekly basis.
Yeah, Wednesday, next appearance, Wednesday for the East Coast watchers. If your show airs early in the morning, on the West Coast, you probably see me Thursday.
Indeed. I'll go to you, Daniel, from the Inscriber Info Boxing News, for those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially as it pertains to the Miami Heat. Let the folks know where they can find you.
Find me on Twitter, folks, Rockers99, RAWKUZ99. Catch me on there. And like I said, hopefully we'll be able to talk more boxing in the future and NBA playoffs coming into mind. Because, this season is becoming a hoop. And let's just keep it rolling, people.
Indeed, absolutely. Let's just keep it rolling. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, you know what it is with me on social media, Brother JR at Brother JR76. As I said earlier, the show, if you want to check out all things Pound for Pound Boxing Report, the website is the place to go to. The website is the place to go to, p4pboxingreport.com, and repeat that, p4pboxing.com. If you check throughout the page, particularly the bottom portion of the page, you'll find links to where to follow us all over social media, to check out the Facebook page, the YouTube page, the Tumblr page, the IG page, and as well as check us out on Twitter. If you want to shoot us an email, you can email us at p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. If you want to send a donation to the show, you got a Cash Me and PayPal donation link on the website. And last but certainly not least, if you're interested in the fitness game, if you want to be a part of my Let's Build Together group fitness challenges, or if you want to check out any of the programs on Beachbody On Demand, just check the bottom portion of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report website, and you will find a link to my online coaching page. On the next episode, we will do a recap of Boo Boo Andrade's title defense against mandatory challenger Liam Williams, and we would recap Regis Prograis' fight against Red Catch, and also talk about Harrison, his return to the ring against Parrella. And we will do a preview of Jaime Munguia. He's making his return to the ring against a fighter by the name of Ballard. Emmanuel Navarrete, he's making title defense of his WBO belt at 126 against Christopher Diaz on the undercard of that. Hard-hitting super middleweight Edgar Berlanga fighting Demond Nicholson. Kenshiro Taraji, very good world champion at 108 pounds. He's making his mandatory title defense against a fellow Japanese fighter by the name of Hisada. There's an all-women's card on the 23rd, headlined by Heather Hardy. If we have some time, we'll get into that, as well as, if we have some time, also get into Marjanovic defending her WBA 126-pound world title. We may talk about that. That fight is going to be on NBC Sports. So we'll talk about all of those bouts. Again, for Gail from Communities Digital News, from Daniel from the Inscriber, from Communities Digital News in the Falcon Valley Group, Daniel from the Inscriber and for Boxing News. I want to thank Unrivaled I also want to thank Olaf for their comments on the show. I am your host, Michael. This has been episode 321 of the Pound for Pound Boxer Report. Everyone have a good evening, good night, and rest in peace, DMX.